The president of the National Black Farmers Association is warning that Americans could see empty grocery store shelves across the nation in the coming months. John Boyd Jr. claims poor planting, supply chain issues, and higher prices for seeds, fertilizer, and fuel are taking a very heavy toll on U.S. farmers. He cautioned that Americans will likely see a shortage in food items and skyrocketing prices by the end of this summer. Joining us now, Montana's Democratic Senator Jon Tester. Senator, John Boyd Jr. sounds very pessimistic. Are you that pessimistic about food supplies and prices this summer?
Look, we've got our challenges out there with the drought west of Mississippi last year, and with the situation with Ukraine and Russia attacking that country that supplies the world, particularly the Middle East and North Africa, with a lot of food. I am not as pessimistic. I think that if we can get Mother Nature to smile upon us and give us a little bit of moisture, the American farmer can do some pretty darn good things as far as production in this country. But make no mistake about it, I do think that prices are going to go up. I think that's a two-edged sword. Prices go up, everything else goes up with it, and we're seeing that with the inputs tripling. Prices have probably quadrupled since 2018, quite frankly. So that's good news in the grain business, if you're in that business. But there are other sectors of agriculture that are not doing as well. Cow-calf operators are having a hard time surviving, and so we need to be aware of this kind of stuff, and we need to make sure that we're empowering the American farmer to do what they can do to help supply the world with food that they've done so well for generations. And I think they'll step up once again if Mother Nature provides us an opportunity to get that job done.
Let's talk about Mother Nature for a bit. Government climate officials reported over half the United States was in drought at the beginning of May, and wildfire season began earlier than usual. Senator, as you know, I grew up in California. I understand there, as well as the rest of the western part of the United States, there really isn't fire season anymore, as I grew up knowing it. It's kind of fire year. How should those Americans, being in the western part of the United States and the country writ large, respond?
Well, look, I mean, I think you have to, as far as those folks that are living close to the woods, you need to do your work to be able to keep fires from coming into your property and just potentially destroying the property that you own. I think on the other side of the coin, this is an opportunity to do some things in Washington, D.C. that will impact climate and CO2 that goes in the atmosphere in a very, very positive way. Now we're talking about potentially drilling more to get more production, but I think we need to go way beyond that. I think we need to put some money into research and development for better and cheaper battery technology, for better energy generation. Let's do some things with hydrogen fuel so we make those safer and more reliable. And let's do some things with carbon sequestration to pull carbon out of the atmosphere or stop it before it gets into the atmosphere. Let's do some things to make nuclear waste benign. And I think we insert all sorts of energy into this marketplace, which will help drive the price down, and it will help consumers in the end. So we really need to step up with R&D. We need to make sure that we're treating climate change like it's real, because I'm going to tell you, this is our 44th year on the farm in north central Montana. My grandmother and grandfather homesteaded this place. My folks farmed it. It was the driest year we've ever had in 2021. Mother Nature's talking to us. She always bats last. We need to step up and do some things that'll fix this problem.
Senator, you have visibility here in Washington on veterans issues, and I want to ask you about something you announced today, a bipartisan agreement on legislation that would provide for veterans in the post-9/11 era relief from any toxic exposure, burn pit and otherwise. Tell my audience what it is, what the fundamentals of this legislation are. You got a White House endorsement late this afternoon. What are its prospects?
We appreciate the endorsement. I think the prospects are good, but certainly not done until we get it across the finish line. What this bill does is allows for the VA to have a mechanism which they can address toxic exposure. Toxic exposure has been around since World War I and maybe even before that, with mustard gas, World War II radiation, Vietnam War, Agent Orange. Now we've got the burn pit issue in the Middle East. We need to deal with toxic exposure better. We've got folks that have come back that have been in war, both men and women, that have been out serving this country in parts of the country where the environment has been bad. And they got lung conditions, they've got cancers, and we need to step up. We've got an all-volunteer military. What this bill is steps up, gives the VA a mechanism by which to treat toxic exposure and give the veterans a shot at a good life after they come back. Right now, that's not being done in all cases, and we need to step up. This bill does that. was able to come together with Jerry Moran and Martin Heinrich and John Bozeman to get this bill to a point where it's ready for prime time. And I think that it's going to be a tough slog because it's going to cost some money. But let me tell you something. When we send folks off to war, traditionally we put it on the credit card. When we come back, we better take care of them. And I believe in paying things, but let's get it set up so we can take care of these veterans as we move forward. And then as the appropriations process comes forward, put the money into VAs necessary to provide these benefits and health care to these veterans that have been exposed to toxic exposures. And that's what this bill does.
Senator, a good part of this audience may understand what a burn pit is, but some may not. Just at a basic level, explain what the exposure is, why the burn pits are used, and what the associated damage is if you are serving in the military and you're near one, not even necessarily monitoring it, but you're just in the presence of one, what the long-term health implications can be.
So burn pits are literally pits in the ground that the military threw garbage into, computers, plastics, all sorts, anything that they want to dispose of. And then they put jet fuel on it and set it off. Some of these burn pits were right next to bases. Some of them were a ways away. That doesn't matter. What happens is the smoke and the fumes off these burn pits were going into these bases. Our military people were breathing them. The folks that serve us were breathing in these toxins. And what we've ended up with is we've ended up with cancers. We've ended up with lung disease because of it. Should it have been done this way? No. They should have been using incinerators, and this wouldn't be a problem today. But that wasn't as easy as digging a pit and throwing the garbage in the pit and just setting it on fire. And the result of that has been toxic exposure, not unlike it was in Vietnam with herbicides called Agent Orange. Now in the Middle East, it was through the air. And quite frankly, it's unacceptable, but what's done is done. We need to make sure we make these service members whole.
Senator, I don't need to tell you, you read it every day. Prospects for Democrats at a meta level this year are not promising. There's a sense that the House Democratic majority will evaporate come November, and the Senate Democrat majority, slender as it is, as slender as it can possibly be, also in deep jeopardy. Based on what you've seen so far, how would you analyze the midterm primary results to date and what you think your party's prospects are for the rest of this year?
Well, look, I think Democrats have some strong candidates coming out of the primaries, and I think that this is not a done deal yet. We've got 4 or 5 months yet to go for folks to get out there and talk about what they want to get accomplished when they serve in Congress. And I think that's really the key. I think people in this country appreciate hard work. And if they see their candidates out there working hard with a message, by the way, that says we're looking out for middle-class families and family farm agriculture and Main Street businesses. We're looking out for public education. We're looking out to make sure people have the freedoms to make their own healthcare decisions. I think we'll do well in the fall. But we need to make sure our candidates are out there talking about the things and not letting another news bureau or Republican say, oh, this is what Democrats stand for, when there's not a lick of truth to it. So we need to get out there and we need to make sure that we're telling the truth to the American voters. And look, to me, it's pretty obvious, but it's a long ways to Election Day. Oftentimes the best people don't get elected in these elections. So it's important we message, and we message very, very well over the next 4 or 5 months.
Very quickly, Senator, inflation is a huge headwind, is it not?
Oh, absolutely. Inflation, and we've got to do some things with it. I've got some bills that deal with the meatpacking industry and the consolidation. There's other folks that have bills that deal with prescription drugs, and there's other folks that have bills that dealing with supply chains, particularly as it applies to the shipping industry. We need to get those bills up for a vote. Hopefully they'll pass because they're good bills, and hopefully the American people will see the benefits of it. This inflation issue has been coming along for a long time. Everybody will tell you that the pandemic is really created it because there's a supply challenge, and there's a challenge of folks wanting to go out and buy because they've been locked up and haven't been spent a lot of time out in the economy. So now is the time that we do as much as we can with the supply side of things. That's what this bill does. And we do as much as we can with the demand side of things. That's what the Fed's doing. And you have to walk this line very tight, because as we have record unemployment and record economic growth right now, we don't want to ruin that as we address the issues that revolve around inflation.
Montana's Democratic Senator Jon Tester, thanks so very much for your time.
Always good to visit with you. Thank you.